More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back in on this Halloween edition of the Zach Gelb Show, 609-919-9200. It is not a happy day today. Usually Halloween is a happy day. You get to go trick-or-treating, but last night the Philadelphia Eagles lose just in terrible fashion to the Dallas Cowboys. They're up 10, not once but twice late in that game, and they weren't able to close the door. Now joining us from PhillyFootballTalk.com, great talk show host, and that is Jon Marks, who joins us right now to talk about that disaster of a fourth quarter performance that we saw last night. John, appreciate the time today, and how are you?
What's up, Zach? Doing well. What's going on?
I'm not doing great because Jerry Jones is happy, John. Come on.
Yeah, you're not kidding. You know, like you said at the fourth quarter, it's really disappointing how it ended. Not the end of the world. You know, you still have your quarterback of the future, but that's now, I count, 2 games on the calendar, on the schedule, Detroit and now Dallas, where if you have a head coach that maybe has more experience or a better head coach, you win both those games.
Yeah, big picture, it's not that big of a deal because my expectations were low, but that's a game last night. Like, if you would have told me at halftime they would have lost the game, I wouldn't be freaking out because they were up by 3, and I was surprised how they were up by 3 at that point. But to be up by 10, that's tough, especially with the head coach that didn't go for a field goal late and then ran a swing pass on 3rd and 8. And last week he was super aggressive. This week he was conservative, and it cost him. Yeah,
kind of coaching scared. It almost like he was coaching not to lose rather than to win. And when you're in the other team's house that's favored, I don't get that. You can talk about the field goal. I would have went for the field goal. The more egregious error to me is the play before where they lose 6 yards. And he said, well, we were 1 block away. If we executed, that would have been a first down. Well, you were counting on the center to execute, and he's hobbling around out there. So is it really that big of a surprise that Jason Kelce didn't get over to make the block? You know, Zach, this isn't the worst loss in the world. Like you said, the expectations change, but the Dallas Cowboys are a good football team. It burns because I felt like the Eagles were the better team last night, but we have to try to remember that this is Doug Peterson's first year, and he's going to have growing pains. We saw with Chip Kelly in his first year. He's going to make mistakes. He's learning the league as a head coach. It's a lot different when you're making every decision. Now, he can come out today at his press conference and say, oh, well, I didn't second-guess this or I didn't second-guess that. He made some crucial mistakes last night, and he cost his team. But the biggest thing is, does he learn from those mistakes? That's the biggest thing for me.
And with the last coach, he did not learn from those mistakes. It was clear he was very arrogant and never wanted to adapt. My question is, though, why didn't he just say, hey, I messed up, I should have took the field goal, or I should have ran a different play on 3rd and 8? Because everyone in the country knows he messed up. Just say it. Be honest. Don't give us that garbage of, oh, well, I look back in the first half, and in the first half, I should have went for it on 4th and 1. No, I'm actually fine there taking the points in that situation, Doug.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wasn't impressed with him today at the press conference. One of the things he showed me previously is that he just seems like not a regular guy, but he just has good common sense. Like, let's face it, anybody that would say they wouldn't change something that didn't work, of course you would want to change it, right? So, like, if I'm at the press conference, Zach, and you're asking the question, I maybe say something like, hey, listen, it didn't work, so obviously, yeah, I wish I didn't do it, but at the time I thought it was the right move. Hey, maybe it wasn't. But he wanted to, like you said, talk about the thing in the first half, which I never even thought about until he brought it back up. So he made mistakes yesterday, and he's being hard-headed about it. Hopefully he learned from those mistakes, but you can't, like Zach, what he was doing, what I think he was doing more than anything was he was trying to protect Carson Wentz from what we saw the previous 2 weeks, and he was trying to protect his right tackle, his young right tackle. He was too conservative. He should have loosened up a little bit, and by the end of the game, listen, you got to go for it, or you're playing to lose, you're going to lose, and they lost.
And I don't even have a problem with the Josh Huff play, but you know people are going to look at that today, and they say, well, you're willing to take a 20-yard shot with Josh Huff, but not with Carson Wentz. That doesn't make sense when you take a look at it from that avenue.
Yeah, there's so many different things that happened in that last quarter. From even there, he was scared. Doug Peterson, Zach, was scared when Dallas was buried deep with 30 seconds left in the game. It was 3rd and 20 something. He was scared to take a timeout because he looked at it and said, well, if they get a first down, now they're 20 yards away from being in field goal range. So literally he was scared to actually get the ball back, because if you stop them on 3rd down, and I don't think they're trying to go for a first down, they want you to use your timeout, then maybe a bad punt or a return, and you get the ball at the 45-yard line. We saw it with Atlanta yesterday. All you need is 2 throws to get in field goal range, and Caleb Sturgis has the leg. I thought that was a huge mistake as well. He coached not to lose, and it cost him. He coached scared yesterday.
And last week, he was so aggressive against Minnesota at home. Did he just get involved in this pressure of Eagles and Cowboys and being on the road? Because I don't get how you go from being so aggressive to then being so conservative and being that scared like you're talking about.
It was weird. You're right. It was, I saw there was a lot of staleness to what they were doing in the first half with the bubble screens and the short passes and what they were doing. And then the one drive, it was a 9-play drive where they scored a touchdown. He ran the ball 7 times. And I felt like he had a really good feel for the game because the bubble screens weren't working. So he did some power running, and it worked. It was a short field. I think they went 55 yards. But it worked. But that was really the only time I felt like, and I've been talking about today on PhillyFootballTalk.com, so check it out. But I felt like that was the only time in the game that he really had a good feel for what was going on with the offense. They were out of sync. I know the players weren't helping. I know the wide receivers aren't helping, but the creativity that I saw in the first couple games, I just haven't seen the last few weeks.
Jon Marks with us, and you're right. It's not all on the coach. You have to hold the wide receivers accountable for their drop footballs, and you also have to hold Wendell Smallwood accountable because that fumble was a major, major turning point. And we saw the turnovers both ways. It worked in the Eagles' advantage, and then it ends up to hurt them in that football game last night. That fumble was a killer.
It was up 10, early fourth quarter, and I'm thinking, listen, this is where you put the game away. You score a touchdown here, the game's over. And you get one play, you bring in a guy, a lot of people criticize them for bringing in Smallwood. How are you going to bring him off the bench ice cold? Well, come on. I mean, give me a break. I was screaming to see Smallwood a lot yesterday, and they bring him in, and, of course, he fumbles on the first carry. But I have less of a problem with that. You're going to hang on to the football, man. You're a running back. You can't fumble the ball like that. It just seemed like anything that could have possibly went wrong, but also the Cowboys were dying to give that game to the Eagles. I mean, they really were. They had a couple different opportunities to where they could have easily won the game in regulation. That fumble, the defense actually holds them to where they hold them to a field goal, and then the whole thing was Sturgis, and they punted the ball. But, Dallas offense, they went 89 or 90 yards for a touchdown after he elected to punt the ball. So it's not like the strategy didn't pay off. Like, I could see if you said, all right, I don't want to kick Sturgis 53 yards because now if he misses it, they get the ball in the 40s and they have a short field. It actually worked. He kicked the ball. Donnie Jones kicks the ball. Beasley catches like the 11 or 10 yard line. They got to go the length of the field, and Dak Prescott did not look good up until that point. You got to give the Cowboys some credit as well.
I know he has confidence in that defense, and that's a good point because they did virtually go almost the entire length of the field. But this was a kicker in Caleb Sturgis that hit a 55-yard field goal before the end of the first half, and it would have been good from 65 yards out. That's how much leg and how much distance it had on that kick. Where's his confidence in his kicker, though?
Well, I would have a lot of confidence in him, and if you remember, he got iced, so he hit it. He much hit it. It was a carbon copy. It was almost at the same spot. Now it's a different kick. There's more pressure, whatever. But Sturgis has kicked well. Doug today in the press conference said that, I punted because I had a lot of confidence in my defense. I think he's looking at it backwards. If you really had confidence in the defense, You'd say, you know what? I'm kicking the field goal. If he misses, they have to score a touchdown, and my defense will stop him. So while he thought he was having confidence in his defense, if he really had confidence in the defense, you go for the field goal there.
I'll tell you, someone I have no confidence in, though, is Nelson Aguilar, and I thought he was bad on the field last night. He was even worse off the field in the post-game press conference, John.
How do you explain that? I mean, he's hearing a lot of it, and deservingly so, justifiably so. He's a first-round draft pick who really hasn't done squat. But I'll tell you what, you can get away with that kind of stuff, and it's not just what he said, it's his overall attitude. And you can see it. It's his overall mentality. Guys in Philadelphia, guys in New York, Boston, East Coast corridor, they'll fold. I've seen athletes do it in whatever sport. If you're not mentally prepared to handle a crowd and a media like Philadelphia, like New York, like Boston, Nelson Aguilar is not equipped. And he's not talented enough to where he can overcome that. So Doug Peterson, the last game of the preseason, sat Nelson Aguilar, who struggled all preseason. Why? Because he was so worried about his mentality and his psyche, he thought another bad game could totally ruin him. That's all you need to know about him. So does it surprise me that he's coming out and saying that? No. But the real issue is who are you going to get production from the wide receiver position? We'll see if they make a trade by the deadline. But, Aguilar pretty much is what he is. He's Nelson Aguilar.
I would not go for Torrey Smith. I would go for Alshon Jeffrey. Do you think they could give up a third to get Alshon Jeffrey? Because that's what the Pats got today for Jamie Collins, and Jamie Collins is a heck of a player.
How about that? So if you get Jeffrey, it's a rental, and you're hoping that you can re-sign him at the end of the season, which you could do anyway. This is what I would do. If you really want Alshon Jeffrey, and you say, you know what, I want to re-sign him anyway. So this will put us in the driver's seat to re-sign him. But I want him this year. I want to see what he looks like with Carson Wentz. I'd give up a third-round draft pick. Maybe you try to weasel a conditional fourth, and then if he plays and he meets certain criteria, yeah, then you do a third-round pick. But they're going to need weapons. I mean, let's face it, they're going to need weapons. Torrey Smith I like because he stretches the field, but you really need – Torrey Smith's not a high-volume catch guy. He's like a Mike Wallace speed type.
He's a one-trick pony.
But yeah, he can stretch the field. He can give you an element that they don't have, and he would help. But he's not worth that contract, and I'm not sure what you have to give up as far as compensation. But, unless it's a fourth or a fifth, I'm not really interested.
Jon Marks with us from PhillyFootballTalk.com. All right, so we talked about Wentz, and I'm still impressed by him each and every game because he's still putting a team in a position to win, even with not a lot of good players around him. Let's get to Dak Prescott last night. What were your impressions of him?
First time that I saw that somebody kind of not solve them, but I think that you're going to see kind of a blueprint, and we'll see what happens with Sam Bradford tonight and in the Monday night game with what the Eagles did last week. But Jim Schwartz did a really good job of making him uncomfortable in the pocket. He was only sacked twice, but he was pressured all night, and they got some good push up the middle. But he was worried, and he looked different, and he made a lot of mistakes. He made throws last night that he looked like a rookie, and you hadn't seen that out of him in a number of weeks. So overall, hey, look what he did in overtime in the fourth quarter. The element of being able to run the ball. He's not looking to run the ball unless they need it, and he had a couple of runs late last night that they really needed. I like him. I don't think he has as much of an upside as Carson Wentz, but we'll see. The NFL, Zach, you know this. Mike Marks looked like that the greatest show on turf is never going to be stopped. And Mike Marks is out of the league just a couple of years later. Chip Kelly looked like that he was the biggest genius of all time. He's going to be back in college maybe next year. So let's see what NFL defensive coordinators will throw at Dak Prescott, and let's see what happens. Tony Romo could be the starter in 3 or 4 weeks. You never know what happens in this league.
Yeah, I think that would be silly if they went back to Romo, but you look at those weapons, all Dak Prescott really has to do is just manage the game, because you look at Des Bryant, he's a hell of a player. You look at Ezekiel Elliott, he was awesome last night, even when they had some success stopping him early in that game. You take a look at this Eagles team, you only see Carson Wentz. The Eagles got to go get some playmakers, though.
Yeah, so what do you know if you're the Eagles that you have? You have Lane Johnson as a right tackle, but he's one.
Yeah, I can't trust Lane
away for 2 years. I mean, he's suspended for 2 years if something else happens with him. You have an aging left tackle in Jason Peters who can still play. You know, who knows what you have in the interior of the line. You have Jordan Matthews. He's erratic. You have Zach Ertz, who's overpaid. And then you have some pieces on defense. They have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work that they have to do in the draft. So that's why I worry about doing these trades and giving up too much, because like you said, they have a lot of work that they have to do. Harry Roseman, you have your quarterback. That's what matters. But now you have to give him some weapons, and you hope that you can maybe get a good free agent, but you got to hit on the draft, man.
John, before we let you run, their next opponent is the Giants. They're going up the Turnpike to play at MetLife Stadium this upcoming Sunday. The Giants have been a team this year that have not scored a lot of points, and it's head-scratching with the move to McAdoo to head coach, and then also the amount of talent they have on that offensive side of the ball. To me, the Eagles just got to get to that 24-point range, and I feel good about myself for Sunday. How do the Eagles get to 24 points on Sunday?
Well, I think the formula with Eli is always getting to him. And if you can get to Eli, which the Eagles have shown they can, and Jim Schwartz has used the blitz a lot more the last 2 weeks than he really ever has before, if you can get to him, you can win the game. You can get turnovers. He'll throw that ball up there. You know, the Giants are weird because they're still winning the games. I said they're the worst four-win team in football. The Texans have 5 wins. They're the worst 5-win team I've ever seen. True. I mean, how do they keep winning games? But the Giants, they're winning the game. And what we've learned about them is you don't want to let them hang around because you don't know what they're capable of at the end of the season. So I saw the early line. I'm worried about how the Eagles are going to react to that game. I don't like where Doug Peterson is right now as a play caller. Forget about as a head coach. But I agree with you. You get 24 points, you win. And you do it by getting turnovers and shortening that field.
Now, I'll tell you how all these teams, they have those 4 and 5 wins. The NFL's just not that good this year. That's what it is. It's the Patriots, then it's everyone else right now. If that Patriot team and their offense stays healthy, they're going to win the Super Bowl again.
No, you're dead on. You have a couple elite teams. You have teams that are elite but aren't playing like it, and then you have everybody else. And the Eagles are right in the middle of that everybody else, along with the Giants and the Redskins. And you probably more than half the league is kind of like right there. So it's good to have parity, but it's not good when you don't have good parity, if you know what I mean.
John, last one before we let you on. I see everything happening with PhillyFootballTalk.com, college and NFL stuff. Give me the latest on the website.
Well, I'm unemployed now. I was working at the Fanatic for a long time. So I'll be back on the radio sometime soon. But I figured this would be a good time to check it out. And I go to Pro Football Talk pretty much every day. I think Mike Florio does a great site with it. It's nothing special. It's nothing really all that dynamic. It's just talking football and talking about the issues and having a little fun. So I kind of put my own spin with the Philadelphia element. And, we do a lot of social media stuff. I did a Twitter reaction to Nelson Aguilar today because nothing's worse than when you suck in a game and Twitter reacts. So, kind of a new spin on football coverage in the city.
Love it, John. Always love talking to you. Thanks so much, my friend.
Anytime, Zach. My pleasure, man.
Thanks so much. Jon Marks joining us from PhillyFootballTalk.com. Make sure you check him out. So with that Eagles game last night, it's just one of those games that you feel like they should have won, and you let it get away. And sometimes you can deal with that, but when you're playing the Dallas Cowboys, man, in this year, if they lose some games like the Lions game, I was annoyed. I wasn't freaking out. Those games happen. But when you lose to the Cowboys, that cockroach organization of the Dallas Cowboys, it's extremely tough to take. And last night, they just choked the Eagles. Yeah, the Cowboys, they did go on some drives, but you're up by 10 on the road. I don't care what the situation is. You have to close it out. And that tone last night in the game was set by the head coach and Doug Peterson. Those players were not playing aggressive because they weren't coached last night to be aggressive. It's baffling how they did not take a few deep shots in the game with Carson Wentz throwing the football. It's hard to understand how Wendell Smallwood puts the ball on the turf, why you run a swing pass on 3rd and 8. And then when you make a stupid decision, in my estimation, not to take a field goal when your kicker already in the game made not one but 2 field goals from 55 yards out. Because like John mentioned, he was iced. Made him both times. And still, Doug Peterson said, we're going to give the ball back to the Cowboys. Go for the kill shot there. Get the 10-point lead back. I had confidence in Caleb Sturgis last night. Where was the confidence from the Philadelphia Eagles in their kicker? And there's a chance Sturgis could have missed it. Still, though, I'm not killing him because that's the right decision. And this may sound even more ludicrous, but I'll share it now. Right before the half, they had that play where it was an out route and they had 1 second left. They called the timeout. They were able to get it in. The clock operator did help them out. It wasn't one of those situations where you see the clock operator on the road just quickly run off that last second. I was saying to my friend, all right, you're in Dallas. It's a 61-yard kick. There's 4 seconds left, or whatever it was. All right, well, just try it. Let him kick the 61. Now, they ended up getting the yards and doing it with a second to spare. But that's the end out the first half. Like last night, if that's in the fourth quarter and they elect a punt instead of a 61-yard field goal, yes, I get that. But I was even thinking, all right, give him a chance. At the end of the half, 61 yards. If he misses it, maybe they have a return guy back there. Just get downfield and it's over. And that kick actually would have been good from 61 yards out. Now, it could have changed from mental approach because you have a 61-yard kick. But that 55-yard field goal would have been good from 63, 64, 65. It was dead on. And it was a lengthy kick. So last night, when I break down this game, the Eagles lost this game for 3 reasons. Number 1, coaching. It was abysmal. Number 2, Wendell Smallwood in the fumble. Killed him. And then finally, these wide receivers. They're brutal. And it really shows you how much the rest of the National Football League is not that good. There's a lot of mediocre teams. The Eagles are not this great team. They're in that okay to good range for this season. But their record looks a whole lot better. And you think of them as a much better football team because the way they played against Minnesota, who's overrated. The way they played against Pittsburgh, who's overrated. And last night, those wide receivers were so bad. It was painful to watch. I said it before and I'll say it again. That third-round pick, I would trade it for Alshon Jeffrey in a second. Even at the expense of not knowing if I could re-sign him. Because I have the confidence if Alshon Jeffrey comes to Philadelphia, that Howie Roseman will be able to re-sign him. I'd make the move. I'd run the gamble. Yes, there's a lot of places to fix on this team. It's a third-round pick. It is worth the risk. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. Time right now in our Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios, 4:38. What we'll do is we'll take a quickie break, and when we get back, I have audio for you. Nelson Aguilar was embarrassing on the field last night, and off the field, he was even more of a jackass. We'll get into that next on the Zach Gelb Show as we roll along on a gloomy Monday. The Cowboys won. Yuck.